Hello and welcome to Power Drift, and this is another episode of You Asked For It. I know we haven't done this in a long time, but we are bringing it back because we think once in a while a sort of discussion-based video will do good for us and for you guys, because you do want to know a lot sometimes about details and data and stuff like that. But this will still be an opinionated video. Okay, we're not just going to read out of a spec sheet.
For sure. And we're comparing the Kia Cyrus and a Kia Ceros and the Skoda Kailak. And I know the two are very different and they're about as different as Cyrus and me, but they sit in a very similar price bracket in the same sub 4 meter segment, and a lot of you are interested in knowing which one's better, and today we are breaking it down.
If you want to drive faster, the torque converter takes a lot more.
When it comes to design, right off the bat, we're just going to say that design is
Most people who buy a sub 4 meter SUV, this is their only vehicle.
when you increase the speeds and get onto those expressways and highways,
Between these two, comfort wise, surprisingly,
okay, when it comes to the driving and the powertrains, they're actually more similar than you might think. We're going to compare the turbo petrols, of course. So 1 liter TSI and a 1 liter TGDI. You get a DCT on the Ceros, you get a torque converter automatic on the Kailak. But actually, when driving it, they are very different from each other.
yeah, now power figures are actually very close to each other. In fact, the Kailak is a little less powerful than the Ceros is. But on the road, the Kailak feels quicker, feels definitely more performance oriented than the Ceros does. Also, even though there's a DCT and torque converter comparison, I really prefer the torque converter to the DCT. Now, the DCT is super smooth, right? For that perspective, yeah, fine. But for the perspective of like an enthusiast, you want something, you want to launch a little bit harder once in a while, just want to drive faster, I think the torque converter takes a lot more sort of rougher use.
I agree, and I think Skoda and Volkswagen have tuned that torque converter really well, and especially in the Kailak, that problem of the torque converter jerking forward while inching or creeping in traffic when you're just in drive and you take your foot off the brake, that issue has been sorted to an extent, so all of those downsides of the torque converter aren't there anymore, and the Kailak just feels like a much more natural experience to drive when it comes to the throttle response, to the braking, and just the engine feels a whole lot punchier despite being down on the power figures.
Yeah, now both are 3-cylinder petrols, so there is going to be some strumming, there's going to be a little bit of roughness to them, but honestly, they're very similar to each other in terms of NVH levels. I am going to add a little point here saying that the 1 liter VW group engine in the Kailak is also, from my perspective, a lot more tunable, and I like doing stuff like that to my cars. The Ceros, not so much, although I believe there is a map for that engine. But that Kailak can take up to 170, 180 horsepower on stock internals with a slightly larger turbo, and that's a mental car right there. I would do that. I would buy a Skoda Kailak, just make it a nice, hot, very hot, small sub 4 meter SUV. Something we've never had, by the way, in India.
For SUVs like Kailak and Ceros to deliver on-demand performance, Castrol Edge SUV engine oil claims to offer 80% improved high-load performance. This advanced fully synthetic engine oil is BS6 ready and provides more power and better acceleration.
On the other side, the flip side though, if you are somebody who looks at frugality, diesel Ceros automatic. That's it. End of story. 1,000 kilometers per bloody fuel refill. We've used the Kia Sonet diesel, same mechanicals. 1,000 kilometers easily doable on one tank of diesel. And it's not slow. It's actually quite responsive. I really like that diesel engine as well. So there's a trade-off. You want something that's practical, sensible, you do the Cyros, and if you want, you buy the Cyros, and if you want something that's fun a little more, then you get the Kailak.
Yeah, and with that we move on to features.
Do you have ADAS?
Let me think. No.
Do you have a 360-degree camera?
Let me think. No.
Do you have rear ventilated seats?
I think that's another no.
What else does it miss out on?
Okay, the Kailak honestly scores on the basics. So it gets dual zone climate control despite those really bad, pesky, touch-sensitive controls. But it does get dual zone climate control. It gets a basic sunroof. It gets front ventilated seats. It gets a pretty bad resolution rear view camera, but it gets sort of the job done. I think that's about it. The Ceros outscores pretty much everywhere else.
Right. Now I'm just going to go back slightly to what we said earlier about driving, right? Yes, there are people who are enthusiasts, and probably if you're watching this video on Power Drift, you are an enthusiast, and for that reason you don't care about these sort sort of feature miss outs. But for most people who buy a sub 4 meter SUV, this is their only vehicle. This is their car. And most people want more bang for their buck than G-force in their corners. So for that reason, in this category, the Syros is the clear winner by far. The last category, debatable. This one, not at all.
That's a great line, man. And with that, we can move on to design. When it comes to design, right off the bat, we're just going to say that design is subjective. I personally do not like how the Syros looks, but I must point out that compared to the elegant and timeless design of the Kailac, the awkwardness and funkiness of the Syros definitely turns more heads. So if you're interested in that, yeah, I mean,
it's like this. If you had a design graph and on one side was
we'll put one here.
Like a safe design, on one side was out there design. These are exact opposites. The Kailac is the absolute one end of safe, sensible design, something you would expect from Skoda and VW and the VW group in general. And then with the Kia, the Syros, Kia designers have just gone completely crazy and they've gone and designed something that actually looks a lot larger than it is. That's one thing that people keep saying, that the Syros isn't 4 meters because it looks larger. It's not. It is still a sub 4 meter SUV. They have some design flaws with the headlight on the sort of edge of the bumper and the tail light that we've actually mentioned in our videos as well. If you do have a scratch on the corner of the car, if you sort of have a little parking lot ding, that's going to probably prove costly. But otherwise, I like design which is simple and timeless. I like the Polo or the Kailac, right? But I really like the way the Syros is designed, because for a change in a sub 4 meter segment, you can take a chance. With hatchbacks, for example, you can take a chance. You can have bright colors, out there designs. With luxury cars, you can't go completely bonkers, right? But with these small SUVs, with these small vehicles, designers do get a free hand to go a little crazy, and that's what they've done, and I think they've done it really, really well.
So the Syros actually is well designed. It's just maybe not to everyone's taste, not to mine, maybe to his. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. And with that, oh sorry, you want to?
Nice color palette on the Kailac as well. The green, the red stuff.
Oh, I love the olive gold. Is a fantastic color on the Kailac, and honestly, we've seen this with the Polo. Like the Polo looks like, it doesn't look like a fresh car, but it looks like a nice car even today. It's not aged too much, and I think that's going to be the same with the Kailac.
True. The Syros is going to age eventually, but for now, for the current, we think I don't know if he agrees, I think it's honestly a well-designed car.
Okay, let's move on now to comfort.
I have a bit of a gripe with this, especially with the Kia. Now, you would expect the Kia to be a more comfortable car, considering the fact that it is aimed at the rear seat a little bit more, a more comfort-oriented overall package. But frankly, it isn't. The low-speed ride in the Kia Syros is just off. We've said that in the review. We've said that to Kia, and Kia sort of is agreeing, disagreeing, whatever they want to do. But we think the low-speed ride in the Kia Syros is a bit of a problem. It is just too stiff for any Indian roads, for any sensible Indian roads, which includes potholes and speed breakers and stuff like that. Nobody drives on the Autobahn every day or on smooth expressways. Even if you drive on smooth expressways, the concrete in the middle on these new expressways is going to be a slightly jarring thing. Higher speeds little bit better, but low speed ride, I'm sorry, the Syros just does not work.
And this is the segment we expected the Syros to take the lead, but it really doesn't. And especially with the tuning Skoda's done with the Kailac, thanks to it being shorter and a slightly stiffer chassis compared to the Kushaq, they've actually made it have a softer suspension setup, and actually has really good ride quality. Sure, there is still that German stiffness, of course, but it's not a bad stiffness. Like the Syros, for example, you feel every single bump. On the Kailac, yes, you feel it, but it never feels like the car is getting unsettled because of those bumps. And then when you increase the speeds and get onto those expressways and highways, the Kailac just stays composed even at 120 kilometers per hour, which is the...
Yeah, between these two, comfort-wise, surprisingly, the Skoda takes the lead here.
And with that, we now move on to the rear seats. This is the Syros trunk car.
Yeah.
I mean, those rear seats are fantastic. We just did a video spending 24 hours inside a Syros, and I can tell you from 24 hours of experience, there's a lot of space. You can take the seat back, you can recline the seat by a lot. It is extremely comfortable. The panoramic sunroof adds to that sense of space. The colors of the upholstery adds to that sense of space. And sure, the ventilation is only for your bottom and not for your back, but it still definitely makes a difference.
Perfectly usable ventilation after a hot meal or spicy meal.
Yeah, and plus sunblinds, something the Kailak misses out on.
The only car which is a 5-seater on a similar price point that's more comfortable than the Kia Ceros in the back seat is the MG Windsor. And the MG Windsor, remember, is a much larger car. That's how comfortable and how spacious the Kia Ceros is. How they have managed to get that much space out of a sub 4 meter sub compact SUV is a case study that should be studied by all engineering students. It's an absolutely fantastic packaging exercise. Now, yes, it has a very, very small parcel shelf, one of the smallest ones we've ever seen in our whole lives, smaller than the Nano, in fact. But it sort of makes up for the fact that you can recline the seat by a decent angle. And frankly, for somebody who does spend once in a while space in the time in the rear seat, that is incredible.
And I think that parcel shelf also tells you that they've thought about all of this. So if it was a big parcel shelf, you would have to move it out of the way if you need to recline. The thing is here, neither do you compromise on space nor on like rear seat space nor on boot space. Whenever you want the boot space, you can always go back to that default setting of any other regular sub 4 meter SUV. But on the 90% of times you're not using that boot space, you have so much more space, and definitely the Ceros takes the win here. But just passing note to the Kailak, it is still comfortable for 2 people, not nearly as comfortable. It's missing out on sunblinds, of course, no ventilation, but it is still comfortable for 2 people. Sitting 3 gets a little bit tight.
So let's do a score here. Driving wise, I believe the Kailak wins. Comfort wise, the Kailak wins. Design is a draw.
Design is a draw, so I won't count that.
Rear seat space, obviously,
the Ceros wins.
The Ceros wins, and then of course features,
the Ceros
takes. So it gets down to like a decision between the two of us.
Oh damn!
Right, because it is a bit of a draw here. Okay, so on 3, if you were to put your own money into a car that you would own, you would drive, what would it be?
Kailak, for sure.
Kailak for me as well. Between these two, yes, I know it's still sort of down on features, but I really like the way the Kailak generally is. But if I was to take a car as a family car, to say maybe replace the Baleno that I have that drives my daughter around, for me, 100% Ceros.
100%. And also, if you're not that interested in driving and you just need a car to go from A to B,
Ceros.
This Ceros makes so much more sense. Because if you're going to be spending time inside the car and you're not interested in driving, it's got so many little things to make that experience just a lot easier. You might not be interested in driving as much, but it just makes the commute itself just much easier. Better speakers, better infotainment, the cubby holes, the designing of the palette of the colors inside. I think it's just a great product.
The only drawback which I see here, which is reflecting in sales as well, because this car should have been actually selling a lot more, is the premium pricing on it, because it is a decent percentage more than everything else, and in that sort of price point, then you're looking at base or mid-model, slightly larger cars. But as we've always said, if you're buying a car, buy the most expensive version of the car that you can afford, instead of buying like a base model car that's larger. At least that's my opinion.
I agree. And on that note, we can end. If you want any more cars covered on You Asked For It, ask for it in the comments below, and we will catch you there.